Today, I want to show you how Palantir's ability to integrate its own audit logs as structured objects, just like any other dataset, makes it a powerful tool not only for analysts, but also for administrators looking to exercise oversight. We have now loaded audit events corresponding to actions performed on Palantir by an existing user, zUj. These audit events are represented as objects with the titles of the actions that they correspond to. If we look at these actions in the histogram, we can see object loads, which correspond to pulling objects from the database, object stores, which refer to the publication of changes, searches, client-side events such as browser object views and snapshots taken, and object link search, which corresponds to a search around, are all represented well. What we're going to do now is see how we can use these audit events to look at how a user has been able to access data that he is not originally permissioned to. Then we will see the access control level change, tracing back in history, that allowed the user to see this piece of information. And finally, who was responsible for this violation. Looking at the audit events, we immediately see that there is a problematic search term that appears 3 times: US citizens with terrorist links. This user is not permissioned to access information about US citizens in this manner, nor is he permissioned to make such a query. Therefore, we should take a closer look at these audit events. The way we have set up the audit logging framework allows us to link audit events corresponding to actual actions performed by the user to audit entities that correspond to the objects manipulated during the action. For searches, for example, this would be the results that were returned as a result of the search, as well as the person who performed the search. Additionally, what we can do is link these audit entities that correspond to actual objects returned during the search to the objects themselves. We will do this with the aid of a PQL runner script. And we can see here that these objects are named exactly the same as the audit entities to which they correspond, allowing us to see exactly which objects were accessed as a result of the search, and if we click through into the browser, what those objects contain. From a cursory look at the search results, it appears that in fact, we do not have any documents on the screen that do not correspond directly to the investigation. However, before dismissing this troublesome search query, we should also take a look at the object loads. We will do this by removing all nodes from the graph, and then reloading the audit events and focusing specifically on the object loads. We then run PQL to link to the actual objects, and then we will look at the objects that were actually accessed during the course of the investigation. Because the administrator has full knowledge of this investigation, he can immediately see that the list of names associated with the object loads are all of relevance to the Hezbollah investigation. He finally finds one that is not, Glenda Meyer. When we run PQL runner to find the real object, Glenda Meyer turns out to be a US citizen. If we look at the history, we see something even more troublesome, which is that the user, zUj, has been able to publish changes from an investigation to this object and to change the links and properties of this object. This means that both read and write access have been granted to this user by an administrator, and that the access control level rules for this particular user have been violated. We will now load an investigation where we have a set of audit events that correspond to administrative actions on the Palantir system. In essence, we are auditing the auditors. As we pull this investigation up, it is worthwhile to keep in mind that Palantir's access control level system means that the only way that the user would have been able to access information about Glenda Meyer is if an administrator had given him the permission to do so, which means that all we have to do is search for audit events performed by an admin upon Glenda Meyer, the audit entity, which corresponds to the Glenda Meyer object. We pull Glenda Meyer, the audit entity, and we search around for audit events. We can see that an admin has performed 3 different events: an object load, pulling information about this person from the database, and 2 object stores, which suggests that changes have been made to this person's information. Looking at the audit log message text, we can see that a property was changed. The old ACLs allowed this object only to belong to the administrators, while the new ACLs granted by this admin have made it so anyone can write to this object. It is important to note at this point that Palantir's ability to integrate its audit logs as data into the system has made this tracing of wrongdoing relatively easy for us. Palantir is committed to making sure that analysts are given powerful tools to conduct analysis, but also that administrators are able to exercise efficient oversight over them. This ability to audit Palantir's own capabilities is another powerful tool that furthers that commitment.